This is Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is a fantastic modeling program. And why am I using this instead of SketchUp to create my drawing or my model here? I'm not ditching SketchUp, but I am acknowledging the fact that Fusion 360 is fantastic. It's honestly better than SketchUp, but it's still lacking a few features that I want to see. However, it's being developed quite well. So Fusion 360 is probably the way to go, in my opinion, for long-term use for me for 3D modeling. However, if you just need something simple, that's easy to learn, that really works, check out SketchUp. It's just way simpler to learn than this one, in my opinion. So why Fusion 360 as well? Well, when I was in college, I learned 3D modeling on SolidWorks, and when I left college, SolidWorks it's obviously expensive. It's a really in-depth program, and not a lot of people have it. So I transitioned to SketchUp, which is more readily available, widely used, and everybody can get it. Now that Fusion 360 is being developed more and more people are using it, and it's a very powerful program, I'm trying to dabble with it. And because it is so much like SolidWorks, the learning curve for me personally was very little. So, tremendous program. Before I start in on this model, I'm actually going to recreate this model just to show you my workflow, and maybe you can pick up on some stuff as I work. But before I start, I want to let you know a couple things that I'm going to be doing that I think that everybody should know as just basics, okay? First off, let's talk about selections. If you click and drag to your left, you are creating a crossing, meaning anything that crosses that boundary box, as well as anything that touches the area inside, will be selected. So you see this leg down here, right? It is not 100% in the crossing, but it still will be selected because it is crossing, and part of it is in the middle. So if I let go, you see that it is 100% selected. However, if I go from left to right, that is a window, and a window means everything has to be 100% inside it in order for it to be selected. So this vertical divider, the center divider, it is not 100% inside, it will not be selected. And this leg is not 100% inside, so it will not be selected if I let go. As you can see right there. This face was, but not this whole component. So window versus a crossing, use those in pretty much most of your 3D modeling softwares use this nowadays, but definitely use those to your advantage, and I will in this particular model. The second thing is I use keyboard shortcuts a lot in SketchUp. I still use them a lot in this program. They will always save time. And then also something that this program has that SketchUp does not is this very fast right-click menu. I don't know what this is called, but if you right-click anywhere, you get a menu, and if you go in any direction, you get basically like a piece of a pie. Like I said, I don't know the technical term for this in this software, but I call it a clock wheel. 12 o'clock always repeats your last command. 130 has a couple different features depending on where you are in the model if you're in a sketch. The 3 o'clock is redo, bottom right is a couple different features as well. 6 o'clock is primarily sketch. Whoops. And 7:30 is move copy, 9 o'clock undo, 10:30 is delete, and of course 12 o'clock always repeats your last command. This is very handy to wrap your head around and get used to and implement it in your workflow. It saves you a ton of time rather than going up here into the menus every single time. So with that being said, I guess we can go ahead and start a new model. So I'm going to recreate this like I said. Let's go to new design up here, Control S, and save this as coffee table video. And what that does is it basically renames my model up here. And just like in SketchUp, everything is based upon sketches. So you have to create a sketch before you can create 3D geometry from it. Now in SketchUp, I'm going to turn my origin on over here by hitting this light bulb. In SketchUp, what I typically do is create a rectangular prism that is the appropriate length, depth, and height of my project. I delete those faces and make the boundary box a component so I can basically work inside that wire frame as my overall length, depth, and height. I do something similar in this, but not quite 3 dimensions just yet. I always create a footprint sketch on the bottom plane, which in this case is the blue-red plane. So right off the bat, I'll select this plane, which is the bottom, and go to 6 o'clock to create a new sketch. R for rectangle, and we'll use a center rectangle. I always make my footprint centered on the bottom plane on the origin. And I'll click and drag in this direction. I'll say 19 is my first dimension, which is my width, and tab 36, enter. Let's zoom out. Now, Fusion 360 has parametric modeling, so you can set constraints here, parameters. If I go to modify, change parameters, I can come in here, create a new parameter and say length equals this value, width equals this value, height equals this value, material thickness number 1 is this, material thickness number 2 is this, number of drawers is this, blah, blah, blah. You can set all kinds of user parameters right off the beginning, as well as add some based upon things that you model as you're modeling. That might be a little confusing. It's so valuable, but I'll just skip that for this particular video and just focus on dimensioning things. Something you see here is that every single one of these lines, every single part of this sketch right now is black. That means it's fully defined. And I want to make all of my sketches black and all of them fully defined before I'm done. And the reason being is if it's fully defined, then it is, everything has an exact location in space, and there's no arguing that because it's constrained and it is defined. You cannot move that. It is there. The reason why that's valuable and that's important is if you get, say, 3/4 of the way through your model and want to change something from, I don't know, 36 inches in width and say, we need 38 inches in width. If everything is fully constrained and fully defined, everything that you've already done will update accordingly. If it's not, you're going to run into some situations where things just don't line up and you'll have a little bit of a headache on your hands sometimes. Control Z to back up. So an example of that, R for rectangle. If I just draw a rectangle off in the space, all these lines are blue because they're lines, but who's to say this line doesn't exist over there? There's nothing telling me where this particular line exists in space. All I have is these constraints that are automatically made with rectangles, which means this one is horizontal, this one is vertical. So I can't change the angle here because they are already constrained. Now I can add dimensions to these, and they'll start turning black and defining them in space. Like this one just turned black. Now all of them turn blue when you hover over them, but fully define your sketches, make sure everything is black, you'll have a lot less problems. Like I said, this is my footprint, so I'm going to open this window over here, or this menu. This is your feature tree that shows all of your sketches, origin, your components, your bodies, your joints. They're mates in SolidWorks, joints in this program. So I'm going to click twice on sketch 1 and rename this footprint. And in my footprint, I want to show the overall size, which is what I already have here, but I also want to show the overhang. So L for line, and up here I'm gonna make sure that X is showing, and that's going to constrain to this line. And I'll draw a vertical line down here, and as you can see, this square popped up. That means if I let go or click, it'll change it to perpendicular. That square means that this line is perpendicular to this one. That icon, you can come over here and see perpendicular. So that's this line. It doesn't necessarily tell me where it's at in this direction. So D for dimension, that line's already selected, and I'll say from there to there is 0.5 inches. That's my overhang. R for rectangle, and after the overhang, this is where my leg is going to be. 1.75, tab 1.75, enter. And again, you can set up parameters and all that to, leg thickness or whatever. One rule in 3D modeling, as my dogs bark. One rule in 3D modeling is never draw what you can copy. Okay, it's always faster to mirror things, to copy things, to make rectangular patterns. Never draw what you can copy. So in this case, I'm going to mirror this leg over to this side and then mirror both of them up to here. And I need a mirror line. So if I go R for rectangle and draw a 2-point rectangle from the center of a center point rectangle to the outside corner of that gives me 2 midlines. Now before I click, I'm going to change that to construction so it doesn't change my overall profile there. I'll select that. So it's constrained to the center, it's constrained to this corner, and we have horizontal and vertical constraints. Everything's black, everything's good. That means I can go to Sketch, Mirror, and use a window to select that overhanging or overhanging line and this square over here, and say mirror line right there. Press OK. It mirrored over to here. Now we have this icon. This is a symmetry icon. No matter what I do over here, it's completely updated right there. If I change this to 10, it's going to change that one because this is symmetry based upon this line of this object. Control Z to back up. Now I'm going to go to 12 o'clock to repeat my last command instead of going up into the menu, and I want to say this square and this square, let's mirror that along this line. Press OK. Everything is black, everything is fully defined. I have the location for all of my legs, and I have the overhang on either side. To create a 3D body out of this or component, I can stop the sketch, create a new component, and then go to push-pull or extrude and do that way. Or anytime you're in a sketch, if you go to 130 on the clock wheel, that is press pull. So let's select that one and let's go in this direction. Let's just change this to 13 inches. I already knew that that's what I needed. And there's a lot in this menu I'm going to get to in just a second. But on this one, all I want to do is change the operation to new component. I want this to be my leg. Press OK. Now, as you can see, it got rid of my sketch because I created something from it. Anytime you do that, it will get rid of that sketch if at first you don't turn the light bulb on. So I'm going to manually turn the visibility on with this light bulb. And I'm going to double click on this component and rename it leg. I could have, when I created this, oh, here's something else that's cool. You have history down here. In the bottom left corner is your history. You can roll back and see everything that you've done in your history. And you can also double click on each one and edit it. So I can edit this, this leg. I can even say I'm going to make all 4 of the legs, but I don't necessarily want to make one leg component with 4 bodies inside it, because if I update one body, it's not going to update all of them. I'm going to hit cancel here. Rather, if I make copies of this and then update this component, it will update all of those copies. I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to get this one completely done and then just mirror it. So let's see where I was at. Oh, also on sketches, if you right click up here on your sketch and say show dimension, all of your dimensions from that sketch will pop up, and you can double click and edit those, say 24, without editing that sketch. You can update them on the fly. And once again, because everything is fully constrained, fully defined, everything else that was based upon that sketch was updated. So this leg was moved into position. Control Z to back up. All right, again, never draw what you can copy or never draw what's already there. So I have the profile for my top, but it's just not in the correct location. That's fine, no problem at all. Let's go to press pull and use a window to select all of this profile that I want down here on the bottom. And instead of just setting this to 3/4 of an inch, let's change this to a new component. Instead of setting this to our material thickness for the top, which is 3/4, I don't want to do that because it's not in the correct location. So let's change this back to 0 so we can see what's going on. Where do we want to extrude from or press pull? Let's start from an object, not from that profile plane. What object do we want to start from? The top face of this leg. That's where we're going to start. And it's a Krenov design, so I want 1/2 of an inch gap between the top of the leg and then the bottom of the top assembly. So if I go to offset, I can change this to 0.5. The direction is one-sided. We can see the arrow going in the appropriate direction. If by chance this is going down, you just type in a negative value for your distance and it goes the other direction. The distance, 0.5 inches. And this creates an operation. I'm going to change this to new component. A new component that is 0.5 inches away from this face up here. Press OK. I'm going to change this component by clicking twice to top. Now again, with this history-based modeling, because this was based upon the location of this top face, I can go back over to here and change the height of this leg just to show you. 2 inches. Press enter and see what it did. Everything is based upon this top, so everything updates. That's parametric modeling. It's fantastic. I love it. Control Z to back up. All right, at this point we can, let's see, we can work on the bottom or the top, and I'm just going to go with the top. So let's hide this footprint sketch. Let's click this face right here and go to 6 o'clock to create a new sketch. R for rectangle from this bottom corner, and I'm just going to go in this direction. I can't automatically constrain to this bottom corner automatically off of a sketch, so I'm just going to drop it. Press escape and select the bottom point of this line. Hold shift or control to select this bottom point on the component and say that those 2 points are coincident or coincident, however you pronounce it. And that brings this, or turns this into a black line because it says that this line exists exactly right here based upon those 2 points. This one's blue because I don't know exactly how much it is in this direction. What I want to accomplish with this sketch is to create a thickness profile for the bottom side and the top side of the top box, as well as the vertical side, and vertical divider. So I'm just going to R for rectangle, draw some rectangles in here off of this corner, down to this bottom line, off of this corner, down to this bottom line. One somewhere in the center, doesn't really matter. And then one from this corner over to this side. And one more, once again, from here to here. D for dimension, and I'm going to set a first dimension of, let me back up. This one, because I started at this point, I don't want to do that just yet. I want to show you something. So I'm going to back up and redo that last rectangle. R for rectangle, I'm just going to say up here somewhere to this bottom corner. D for dimension. Now I'm going to set this dimension between these two at 0.75 inches. Again, I could use material thickness, whatever I wanted to do here as a parameter, but just to show you, I'm going to set 1 at 0.75. Wait a minute. So this, I just noticed, I set the wrong height here. Some of you may have picked up on that. This should be this thickness of this component should be 0.5 inches. So I don't know if I can do it inside a sketch, can I? Let's double click extrude the top. Nope, I have to stop my sketch first. Let's go back to extruding the top. I did type in the wrong distance. That distance is 0.75. Some of you may have caught that. Press OK. Now let's go back to the sketch and double click this icon to edit it. So now my 0.75 should line up perfectly with here. Again, I could set a parameter here to material thickness and I would not have to worry about things lining up, but I'll cover that in another video. In this case, I just want to show you how you can link within sketches. So this is my material thickness, but every single one of these is the same thickness as well. So I can go D for dimension from here to here, and instead of typing in a dimension, I can hover my mouse over here and it says D13. I can either type in D13 or I can just click on it and it'll type for me, D13. I'm actually going to select that and copy it really quick. But if I type this, if I put D13 and press enter, it says FX 0.75. This means that there's a function here. This dimension is equal to this dimension over here. If this one changes, so will this one. So I can say this to this, Control V to paste, enter, same thing. This one to this one, Control V, whoops, that wasn't the right one. Control V to paste, D for dimension from here to here, Control V to paste. So that means if I edit this one to say, I don't know, 1, every one of the other ones will edit as well. Control Z to back up. So I still need to add a couple more constraints or dimensions to make everything fully defined. D for dimension in between here and here is 4 inches. That's my drawer height. I can change my drawer height at any time and everything else will update. And now I want this one to be perfectly centered. There's a couple different ways you can do that, but we can just go L for line and change this to construction and wait till we get on this line the triangle to pop up. That triangle means it's the midpoint. I say midpoint from here, midpoint to there, midpoint from here, midpoint to there, and then escape, select this one, hold shift, select this one, and say that those two lines are equal. And if they are equal, then this one's perfectly centered. Now everything's black, everything's fully defined, we're good to go. I can start pulling parts out of this. I can go to 130 for press pull, and I can say that all of this is my top. But remember, never draw what you can copy. It's easier to copy things. So I'm going to hit escape and just stop this sketch really quick. I am going to use this sketch to locate this though. So this is a component. I'll go to 730, which is move/copy. I'll change the object to components. I'll select this component and I'll say the move type is point to point. So from this point to this point, I want that to move, but I don't necessarily want to move the first one. I want to create a copy. Press OK. Now what this does is it puts another top in the exact location that I want it to, but these are copies. So if I cut dovetails on one, it's going to cut dovetails on the other, copies of components. If you copy bodies, you're not going to have that relationship. So just to show that, if I extrude this face, you see the bottom one updating as well. It is a copy of a whoa, I hit my microphone, sorry. It's a copy of a component based upon that sketch. Now, let's create the vertical sides by going to 130 for press pull and use a window to select those right there. I know that my dimension this way, let's change the operation to new component. I know my dimension right there is 19 inches. And I can just type in 19 inches, but never type something in when you can select something else on the project that you need it to stop at. So if I just, for example, type in 19 and leave it there, and then change the footprint, my width on my footprint, which establishes this size, to 14, then these are based upon that footprint sketch. It's going to update the 14. This one's based upon the number that I put in. It's going to stay at 19. I want this to update as well. So instead of typing in a dimension, I will say the extent. I don't want to say a distance. Instead, to object. What do I want it to stop at? I want it to stop at that back point. I can select any point over here. It doesn't matter. It's always normal to this sketch. And new component, press OK. This new component, I'll click twice and call this side. As you can see, I lost my sketch again. So let's turn on sketch 2 and let's actually rename that box. That's the top box. So this side component, let's go to, we can select it or whatever, and go to 7 o'clock, which is move copy, the component that I already have selected, and point to point, select from right here to right here, create a copy. But now we have a problem. If I do it in this manner, the inside face over here is going to now be the outside face over here because it's just a directional copy. That's a problem because I'm going to be cutting the pins on the top of this board. Sometimes it's not a problem. In this case, it is. I'm cutting the pins on the top and bottom of this board, and pins are directional. The outside face needs to be the outside face over here. It's going to change sides. So instead of simply copying from one side to the other, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that my original sketch was centered about the origin. So instead of point to point, I'm going to select rotate. So my selection is still over there, that component, and the axis is this center axis with the green. Now the angle, I'm going to rotate this around just to show you. Actually, it already created a side. I did not want it to. So let's hit cancel. Let's back up our history over here. Actually, just select that one and delete it. It should not have created that copy right then. So let's go to move copy once again. Select my component, and I'm just going to select this side and select rotate. This is the center axis I want to rotate along, and I can show you as I just move this around. You'll see what's going to happen if I go 180 degrees. It's going to put it on the other side, but the outside face is still the outside face. So that's what I want. I want to rotate this 180 degrees, and I want to say create copy, press OK. Now, you see it says side 1, side 3. That's because that's the third instance of this copy. I just deleted the second one. I don't know why I added that. It was an accident. But what this does is if I go to E for extrude, this outside face, you see if I modify the outside over there gets modified. So that's the position that I want it to be in. I'll press escape to back out of that. One last thing from the sketch is this center divider. So let's go to press pull once again, use a window to only select this, and again change the extent to object and select an object on the back side over there. Change the operation to new component, press OK. The new component, I'll click twice and call this I can't think right now. Vertical divider. That's the center. This sketch I'm pretty much done with, so I'm going to turn that off. And now I can do all of the joinery. And I can do every bit of the joinery, the dovetails, and the tails, the pins, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those joints, plus mortise and tenon, 1, 2, all based upon one sketch. Very handy and very cool. So I'm going to select this face, go to 6 o'clock to create a new sketch. And I know that I'm going to be doing some mirroring in 2 different directions. So let's just go ahead and do R for rectangle, change this to a construction from the center, which is already based upon the origin here, to this bottom corner over there. Again, everything's black, fully defined. Now I'm going to just draw one dovetail. Press escape. Let's see, turn construction off, L4 line, and let's just draw one tail from here to here, from here to here. Nothing really matters at this point, from there to there, from there to there. D4 dimension, let's just say that this is, I've already established 3 inches will work. I'll just type that in. D for dimension, and from here to here, 75 degrees, that looks appropriate, but these are not identical. I can instead of typing this out as that same angle and all this, and centering everything amongst the center line, it's very easy to select this, hold shift, select this line, and after I have 2 lines selected that I want to be symmetrical, then I select the mirror line, and then click over here to symmetry. So there you go. When this angle is changed to meet this angle, and then they're also symmetrical amongst this line, they're perfectly the same distance. That means 3 inches is already established. 1.5 inches from here to here. Everything's black, everything's fully defined. That is one tail. So now what I'll do is I'll go to Sketch and use a rectangular pattern. It's such a cool tool in both sketches as well as 3-dimensional stuff. So let's select the objects first. Use a window to select only those, and it gives me 2 arrows here, and I don't know which is which based upon these two, which is left and right, which is up and down. So what I always do is I just drag in the direction that I want and see which one updated. This one updated, so this one is my up and down direction. Now I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and drag all the way down here, and that spacing actually looks really good. But if I was to want only the start and stop, I can also uncheck any instance in between, but I can also say that I want this to be symmetric. I want it to be amongst both directions. So that's 3. I want more than 3, obviously. Let's add 4, and it puts 2 on bottom, 1 on top. Let's select 5. That looks good. 7 inches looks good. As far as the spacing, this gives me a pin in the middle that is smaller than the outside half pins, which I actually like. That creates a half pin on the outside that is a little bit stronger. And it keeps this pattern here, this dovetail pattern, kind of enclosed to the middle of the project. It visually breaks up the outsides. I like that. So I'm good with that spacing. I'm going to press OK. Now, I also want to mirror all of this to the other side. No sense in drawing it again. So let's go to Mirror and select all of this, mirror line right there. Press OK. And all of my dovetails are taken care of now, both sides. I want to do 3 mortise and tenon joints through mortises right in the middle where this vertical divider is. And I can see the vertical divider sticking through, so I can actually just click and constrain to it. R for rectangle from here to here, and from here to here. D for dimension, I want this one to start, I guess 1.5 inches away. I'll probably change this as I build because I don't know what actually looks good as I'm looking at it. But just for this model, we'll say that that is 2 inches, and we will say that this one is 3 inches. We will select this line, holding shift to select that line, and holding shift to select the symmetry line, and select symmetry. So that one perfectly centers. And then also, let's grab all of this and say sketch, mirror line right there, puts one down there where I want it. Press OK. This one sketch has all of the joints. It's fantastic. Let's go to stop sketch, and we can see it all right there. I'm going to rename this to dovetails and mortise and tenon. Now let's make some cuts. So I want to cut the vertical pieces first. Let's go to press pull, and I'm actually going to go to the top view. And if I am cutting the vertical pieces first, that means I'm cutting the tails. So let's select tails. I'm going to cut the tails away from the vertical pieces. And I'm also going to cut away the shoulders of the mortise, which is all of this right here. All of that selected. And I'm going to go, again, never type any distances. Starting from this plane, and I'm going to go to an object, which is the bottom side of this face right here. If the material thickness changes, then this cut will change as well. Operation automatically pulls up as cut, objects to cut. I do not want to cut the top. All I want to cut is the side and both vertical dividers. So then I can press OK. Now I need to repeat that command once again. You can see that I already cut these and it's showing up on that one. So let's repeat that once again. Let's turn on our dovetails, mortise, and tenon. Let's go to press pull. Let's go to a top-down view. Select only the tails. Only the tails. And only the shoulders of the tenons. And this time we're going to cut the bottom sides. So let's go, where are we going to start? We're going to start from the top of this piece and we're going to end at the bottom of that piece. We are cutting. What are we cutting? We are not cutting the top, which is a horizontal piece. We are only cutting the verticals. Press OK. One final thing we need to do with this sketch is cut the pins off of the tailboards. So let's go to press pull once again, go to the top view, and this time we're only selecting the pins, which are these. We're only selecting the mortises, which are these. And once again, these pins. Now, remember, this is a copy down here. So whatever I do to this top one, this top piece, it's going to update right here. So I can do all of this in one cut. So I'm going to go from the profile plane to an object, which is the bottom side of this piece. And we are going to cut just the horizontal top, not the vertical pieces at all. Press OK. And just like that, if I turn off my dovetails and mortise and tenon, all of my joints are cut from one sketch. Pretty nifty. The cool thing about Fusion 360, one of the cool things, is it has press pull as well as extrude. And in SketchUp, press pull is actually extrude or push pull, whatever it is. There's only one. So in SketchUp, if I was just trying and exaggerate these dovetails by extending them a little bit, all I would be able to do is extend these in vertical lines easily anyway. I could go in there and draw out all that geometry. It'd be time consuming, whatever. But in Fusion 360, I can use the press pull instead of extrude and say this. My computer lags a little bit when I do this, so it's going to take a little, there's going to be some lag when I select those. And we're going to say these are going to come out 0.125 inches. And it extends that same profile rather than extruding that rectangle. And you can see the shape is still consistent. So 1/8 of an inch, press OK. I'm going to go to this other side and do the exact same thing. Let's select that, and that. And let's go with 0.125, enter. I'm going to do the same thing with the pins really quick. Let's go to a top-down view. And let's say this. Come on, mouse. Maybe I don't have to do the top-down view. My computer doesn't like this. Select those like so. I like the look of exaggerated dovetails. It just looks really cool in my opinion. Not the mortises. 0.125, press enter, and we'll do the exact same thing on the bottom really quick. Grab this. And type in 0.125, enter. Let's go to my home view here so it flips everything around. And now my dovetails are nice and exaggerated and it looks really cool. I want to take this a step further and I'm actually going to chamfer every single one of these. And if I was to do a chamfer in SketchUp, holy moly, would that just be time consuming and crazy and insane. Not so much in this, it's really cool. Let's go to modify, chamfer, and let's make sure we are on an orthographic view. So we are looking dead straight amongst all of our lines, and go to a front view. Now I can use a window to only select that, and let's use a window to select that. You'll see what I'm selecting in just a second if you can't already figure it out in your head here. I'm only selecting the outside faces of the exposed geometry there. So I select those and those. And just that fast, I'm going to put a chamfer on 176 edges. And this is a full 1/8 of an inch. They're proud of the surface by a full 1/8 of an inch. So if I just type in 0.125, it'll update and show me what that looks like. I don't like I think there needs to be a little bit more of a step there. So I'm just going to change this to about half of that, 0.75, not quite half of it. And 0.75. Let's add a 0 there so it makes sense. There we go. 0.075. It looks really cool. Press OK. So I'm going to change back to perspective view. I just think perspective looks more natural. And looks pretty cool, right? So now we can work on the base. For the base, I'm going to add my footprint once again. And because I'm going to, I'm actually going to draw the rails based upon the start and stop locations of the feet on the bottom here. So on this face, let's go to 6 o'clock and draw a sketch. This one is confusing and kind of crazy here, but I worked out all the math, so just bear with me. I'm going to first L for line, create a construction line that is centered right here, all the way down, and just for consistency, I'm going to drag one up. I don't need one up as well, but just for visual consistency. And then R for rectangle, and I'm going to make a rectangle like, actually no, turn off the construction, R for rectangle, a center rectangle based upon this center line here. And I will just draw it like that. Let's grab this line, hold shift and grab that line and say that those two lines, the bottom side of the bottom is collinear. I want that to remain right there. My overall height of this rail is 3 inches. I do want an overall width of 0.75 inches. And there's going to be a kind of a crazy angle here before the actual rail starts that comes in contact with the top, or in contact with the leg. So bear with me just a second. This will make sense, but this is going to get confusing. So I'm going to draw a line, D for dimension. The top of the rail contacting the leg is 0.75 inches away from the top of the leg. And we need another R for rectangle, center rectangle on this center line inside this rail. And this is going to be the mortise and tenon part. D for dimension from here to here is exactly 0.25 inches. From here to here, 0.25 inches. This is all stuff that takes a little while to figure out, but I've already got this in my head, so I'll save you guys the slow contemplating process here. That's all good. So now I'm going to draw another rectangle from here to, let's see, R for rectangle, another center one on this, and I'm going to draw it onto that edge up there. This gets kind of confusing, so I'm going to say that line and this line are collinear. D for dimension from here to here is 0.125. And sketch an arc, a 3-point arc that starts here. This is basically trying to define the shape of this arc and goes there. And if I drag it along this line, you'll see a circle with a line on top pop up right here. Maybe you won't see it. That circle with a line on top says that is tangent. So I'm going to drop that right there. And from here to here, circle with a line on top is tangent. That looks confusing, but it makes sense in my head. So let's go ahead and press pull. Everything is black. Everything is fully defined. I'm going to start the rail with the tenon joint. So I'm going to select the tenon. That's the tenon profile. Where do I want to start? I want to start this tenon profile from the outside of this leg because it is a through mortise and tenon joint. And where do I want to end it? I want to end it at the outside of this leg over here. This is going to create a new component. Let's press OK. Let's rename this new component front rail. Let's rename that sketch we were just working on front rail. Let's also turn that sketch back on. Now we're going to add to this. This is just the tenon that sticks all the way through. Now we need the actual profile of the rail. So let's go ahead and create a new press pull. Let's select this geometry, this geometry, this geometry, this added curve over here. There's some more of it. There's that, and then there's that. And all of that, we want to start where the sketch is at, and we want to go to an object, which is the inside face of this leg that's not even there yet. We're going to join this with another component. It automatically decides which component you want to join it to. In this case, it activated the leg. I don't want to join it to the leg, so I'm going to turn the visibility of that leg off. Now it says we're going to join it to the top. I don't want to join it to the top. Let's turn the visibility of that off. And then it says front rail. So now we're joining it to the front rail. That's exactly what we want. The tenon's already established. Let's press OK. Now let's turn those two back on so I can see what's going on. And yeah, that's the front rail. But I'm not done with this sketch though. I do need to make this this tenon. I need to cut a mortise for it, so I can do that from that sketch as well. So on this front rail sketch, we're going to press pull once again, and this rail is in my way. I can't physically select that profile. However, if I go over to the profile and then hold down the left click, a menu pops up. I'll let go of the left click, and then I can scroll through which one do I want. And you'll see it highlight on the screen which one you want. In this case, this profile. That's what I want to select. And this way we're going to go from that plane, and the distance is to object. What object do we want to stop at? This outside face. It is a cutting operation because we are creating a mortise. And the objects to cut, all we're cutting is the leg. We're just cutting the mortise and the leg, not the front rail. Press OK. And now we have a mortise cut into this leg. You can see by different profile faces here. So that's that. We're done with the front rail profile sketch. However, I do want to add a cutout. So this angle right here, right, this angled face, this arc, that's going to be a cove cut on the table saw. And I want to compound that with another kind of cove cut in this direction on the bandsaw. So I'm going to select this face, go in this direction. Oh, I'm sorry. Select this face and go 6 o'clock to create a sketch. R for rectangle, constraining to this point, and then constraining to this top edge. And then D for dimension from here is, that dimension is 3 inches. And we're going to sketch an arc. I always want to say A for arc, but in this program, it's appearance, not arc. So from here to here's my arc, and I'm going to bring it down to this line so it's tangent on this bottom edge. Never draw what you can copy, so L for line to create a construction line based upon the center point of this rail. Press escape, go to sketch, mirror. I want to mirror all of this based upon this mirrored line. Press OK, press pull, and I want to cut this, and I want to cut this from the plane to the object, which is this back face, and I want to cut objects to cut. Should only be one. Yeah, I don't have any options here, so I'm only cutting this rail. Oh, sometimes I don't understand this part, chain faces. I'm not exactly sure what this does, but sometimes you'll notice, like, yeah, that's what I want to cut, but it's not working with this operation. So if you extend the faces, I haven't quite figured out that or taken any time to figure out what that does, but it changes this to make it cut. Objects to cut, now we are only cutting the front rail. Press OK. So now I have that compound angled curve. Compound angled curve? Compound curve, I guess. Two-directional curve. So there's that. The front rail, and this is the front rail arc. Sure, we'll call it that. I just need to make one more short rail. This short rail is super easy. I'm going to grab this 6 o'clock to create a new sketch. R for rectangle. Actually, L for line to create a construction line based upon this center point. R for rectangle, and we're going to do a center rectangle. We're actually going to do two of them, one large one. Control Z to back up. I forgot to turn construction off. R for rectangle from the center. Oh, Control Z to back up. I guess it won't let me back up this construction for some reason. Let's just turn that. I'll just delete it. R for rectangle from the center point there to there, and we're going to do another one that is perfectly centered inside it. And this one we're going to say this line and this line are going to be collinear. I want the top of this rail to start where the bottom of this rail is. D for dimension, and this one is going to be a height of, I think, 1.75, which I got the wrong one there. Let's just do this. Sometimes you got to do things in the right order or it gets kind of crazy. Oh, I see what's going on. This center one is constraining to these diagonals. Let's just go ahead and delete that. We will delete all of those points as well. So now d for dimension from here to here is 1.75, enter. That looks more appropriate. And I think that's the same distance right here, 1.75. All right, now my material width is 0.75 inches. You know what? I lost my center constraint. Let's just back up and punt. Let's grab all that and delete it. R for rectangle, from the center. Let's grab right here and say that. D for dimension, this is 0.75 inches. This is 1.75. And now, where do we need to go in this direction? This line and this line are collinear. I just botched that. Now let's do the mortise and tenon joint. R for rectangle. R for rectangle, center rectangle from here. And I'm not going to select these inside lines once again. Instead, I'll just drop it and say D for dimension right here to here. 0.25 inches from here to here. Let's actually drag it on the inside and then say from here to here is 0.125, enter. Sorry, that was way more confusing than what it needed to be. Now let's press pull and select just the tenon. For the tenon, we're going to start from an object, which is the outside of this leg, and we're going to go all the way to an object, which is the outside of this leg, and we are going to create a new component. Press OK. This new component is the short rail. I guess I should rename front rail to long rail because I am going to mirror it on the backside. All right, so this is my short rail tenon. Let's rename this sketch to short rail. Let's turn it back on. Let's go to press pull and let's add this profile around it. And the distance is going to be to an object, which is right there. We're going to join it. And again, it's telling me to join to the leg. I don't want to join to the leg, so I'll turn the visibility of that off. It gives me this rail. So I'm joining it to the rail. That's exactly what I want. Let's press OK. So now I can turn the leg back on. And at this point I can start mirroring stuff. I don't like, this is one thing that I do not like about Fusion 360 is mirroring. Mirroring components, in my opinion, should most definitely maintain all the property linking in between. So how do we get this leg over here? Let me show you something. If I M4 move, and if I go to component, we're going to select that component point to point. If I say move this leg to that point and say make a copy, see what it's going to do? It's going to create an exact copy of that component. I'm going to turn that short rail sketch off. And if I edit this component, it's going to edit it as well over here because it is a copy of a component. Let me go ahead and back up our history here. That's what I want it to do. However, if I go to create mirror, and I want to mirror a component, this component, mirror plane, this plane, press OK. This, in my opinion, should most definitely be a copy of the component and it should update automatically. It doesn't. Instead of saying, it has a designation here that this component is a mirror. So if I edit this one, it doesn't edit that. It drives me nuts. I wish that mirroring worked just the way you copy and flip in SketchUp. If you copy a component and then flip it in SketchUp, then that is essentially making a mirror, and that maintains all of the features of that. I wish that there was either a flip command or a mirror that kept those relationships, but it simply doesn't. So that being said, I need to back up my history, and I need to make all of the adjustments to the leg before I mirror it. I can copy it in this case to all four corners using a few different methods. Because this particular leg is the same in both directions, this inside face is the exact same thing as the outside face. It gets problematic though if there's different features that are based upon newer features in the model, and you have to, anyway, I'm not going to confuse anybody here. So before I do the mirror, let's go ahead and create a chamfer top and bottom. So let's zoom in here, modify chamfer, select only those edges, and type in 0.25 inches. Enter. That makes the leg, it just sets the leg off. It looks really nice. And now I can take this leg and I can go to create mirror plane right there, press OK. 12 o'clock repeats these two components. You know what I forgot? I forgot the rail. Let's back up once again. Now create mirror, which components? This one and this one. I want to select this mirror plane, press OK. Repeat that last command. Components, I want the front leg, the front rail, and this leg over here, mirror plane, this back one over here, press OK. So now everything is done. That is the model. And as far as speed goes, once you get used to this, pretty much the same speed in SketchUp as well as Fusion 360. However, I got a lot more options in Fusion 360. So that's cool. I'm going to press A for appearance, and I'm using a 4K monitor, and Fusion doesn't scale windows that well, so I'm being cut off right here. But if I type in mahogany, I'm going to grab this one, and then I'll select, let's see, I'll select the top, side vertical divider, and I'll drop mahogany on those because it cannot be assigned at face level. These are components. Vertical divider, side, top, and top. I will grab unfinished mahogany and drop it off at these components, and there you go. Now the leg, short rail, long rail, short rail, leg, long mirror, all the base. All of that is going to be maple. If I type in maple and I'll go to unfinished maple, drop it off over here. That's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use mahogany for the top and maple for the bottom. Fusion 360 has a built-in rendering option that is fantastic, and it gives you a real-life view of what this is going to be. So without getting too complicated here, I can just set this in place where I want it and then go to render in this menu and change the lighting and all this, and then just either right click and go to render, or just render in place. And this may actually crash my computer, but it's going to render everything, and then eventually you can output an actual photorealistic image, which I'll just display on the screen right now because I can't use Fusion, my recording software, and render at the same time. So there you go. This video, I think, turned out a little bit longer than what I wanted, but I guess that's a good little introduction to the walkthrough of my workflow. Anyway, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Let me know what you would like to see in Fusion 360. Would you like a full-blown course on how to do a lot of stuff with the basics, with some advanced stuff? I don't know. Just let me know what you'd like to see. Fusion 360 is a fantastic program. Yeah, I just like it a lot. Hopefully you guys can use this to your advantage. You guys take care. Have a great day, and I will talk to you next time. So I actually started editing the video, and then I realized that I never did show the power of parametric modeling in SketchUp, adding these sketches. Yes, I did not go to input any parameters. However, all of my sketches were completely fully defined before I left that sketch. That means if I go to update something, it's going to update as well. So I've got the footprint sketch activated, and I right-clicked and said show dimensions. So now I can go back to my very first sketch, the very first one, and change this dimension to say, I don't know, maybe I realized that I don't quite have 36 inches of available space. Let's just say we have 33 inches of available space. Instead of modifying everything that I've already done to reduce 3 inches from the total length, if I just type 33, press enter, everything should update. And there you go. Everything updated accordingly because all of my sketches were fully defined. And that is one of the very amazing benefits of parametric modeling. So 45 inches. The only thing that I didn't really do is on these dovetails, I did a linear pattern, rectangular pattern, based upon a set number. So if I expand these out, there's going to be bigger pins. I think that's going to be the case. So let's go to, I guess, 25 inches for the width. And at that point, if it ever updates, yeah, these outside pins, I'll need to add add another feature in, or add another instance into that rectangular pattern if I want to keep that same 3 inches in width. Of course, you can set that 3 inches in width with a parameter to update and blah, blah, blah. But that is one of the very awesome benefits of parametric modeling. You can, when it's all said and done, you can go ahead and make updates on the fly, and everything else updates accordingly. So anyway, I thought that was very important of me to include that. And let's change this down to 9. And there we go. Everything updates accordingly. I thought it was important for me to show that because I did mention it a couple times in the video. Again, I want to drill it into your heads. Always make all of your sketches fully defined before you move on to the next sketch. Anyway, that's it for real this time. You guys take care. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.